Okay, you hear me? You know, technical problems happen all the time. I ain't worried too much about it, Mr. Rasley. Thank you so much for coming on the show, though.
Well,
So I went ahead and kind of...
It's been a struggle for us to get together.
My pleasure. Exactly.
Don't hold back how you feel. Welcome to the platform for the misunderstood and creatives alike. So roll a joint and pour a shot. You're listening to the Dash It Up podcast, the show that brings your after hours talk to daytime. No wrong opinions and all unfiltered. With your host, Vic Dash Orr.
Just for clarity's sakes, can you go ahead and just tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do?
Sure. You want me to do that now? Okay. Well, I'm a retired lawyer. I'm the president of two different foundations. The Scientech Foundation of Indiana, which has a mission of funding science, technology, engineering, medicine, and technical arts through grants to programs throughout the state of Indiana, mostly for kids who go to summer STEM camps, but also to provide equipment for classrooms, particularly in schools with underprivileged kids. And then I'm also the president of the Basa Village Foundation, which is a very different foundation because it's, although it's a U.S. foundation, all of our work we do in a remote area of Nepal called the Basa area. And we've funded all kinds of infrastructure development in that area, to schools, a hydroelectric system, water system, a medical clinic. So sort of all the basic infrastructure that the village did not have before. So the first time I went there, which was in 2008, there was no running water, no electricity, not even any vehicles with wheels. Now there's a road that comes to the village. And people were basically living the same way that we think of people lived in the Middle Ages, although at least lots of people in the Middle Ages had running water. But so,
Wow.
Both working on both of these foundations has been very gratifying because it's, it feels good to help kids who are interested in developing educationally within my home state, Indiana, but it also has been really interesting to work with these people in such a remote area in the Himalayan region of Nepal.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So you went to Nepal and you pretty much changed their infrastructure and the way that they went about their day-to-day life, the way they lived, and kind of, in a sense, some would call it creating a more civilized atmosphere, to whereby there's growth for the people of Nepal. And you did that by creating foundations, literally. And so that's amazing. That's beautiful. So quick question, since we're on the topic, I noticed that you said that you're culturally sensitive to certain cultures. So when you went to Nepal, you didn't go there with the mindset, as in, these people need this and they don't have it, they don't have that, they don't have that, so let me just do it. You realized you knew what they needed, but you integrated within their culture, being respectful. And how did the people of Nepal recognize your works and treated you for your efforts in improving their day-to-day life?
You make a really good point about being culturally sensitive, because each of the projects that we've done, the local people requested. So it was never our intention, and myself and other members of our foundation, to go there and tell local people, here's what you need. My my first contact with them was because I was in a mountaineering expedition group, and our guide and our cook and all of our reporters were from this area. And they asked me if I would raise $5,000 because they had a little school that had 3 grades, and they wanted to add a 4th and a 5th grade. And they said if I could raise $5,000 and donate it to the school, they could add 2 classrooms and pay 2 teachers for 3 years, which, I mean, you think $5,000 to add 2 classrooms and pay teachers for 3, I mean, it was, I mean, I couldn't say no. And so that's how my relationship with that area started. And so every project we've done has been because they requested it. And then the local people, they build it themselves. Like, they built their school.
Pretty much it was a partnership. It was a partnership between the people of Nepal and you and your foundation, in which it was a mutually beneficial accomplishment on both ends. So amazing. That's amazing. Doing a little research about you, you kind of give me a nomad type of vibe, like reading, like checking out your book, checking out your works, reading your backstory. I know that you said that you dropped out of college one term and then you went traveling, and I believe you was going to it's a whole jigamacaw. But now it's interesting. I'm gonna get onto that later on in the episode. One of the things I just wanted to touch topics on, because since we're talking about culturally sensitive, doing that in Nepal, here in the States. Now, do you think United States is a culture as a whole? Like, what's your view on the United States as being a culture? Do you think this is a culture from an anthropological point of view? Do you think that the United States can be a culture, or is it a culture compared to other countries?
Well, I think the United States has exported certain aspects of its culture to other countries, like Hollywood in particular, popular music, sports, the kind of surface level cultural aspects. But I think the United States is just so diverse and so complex. It's got many cultures, and then many, many subcultures, which Nepal does as well. Any nation that's got, millions of people is going to have a lot of different cultures. But if, you're kind of the superficial superstructure of the national culture, yeah, I mean, the U.S. in a way has that because almost everybody is connected. I mean, we all, I shouldn't say all, but most Americans are on the internet or watch TV.
I don't do that. I don't do those things. I don't be on social media. I don't be on the internet. I'm messing with you. Of course, I'm a millennial. Of course, we all have things in common as far as the internet. Sometimes we like to go out and eat. Sometimes we like to engage in foods that's probably not in our best interest. Now, from a cultural perspective, is that a United States thing? Honestly, it could be. I really feel as though the indulgent aspect is something that's typically very, 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 very much associated with the United States. You hear stereotypes all the time about the United States, how we can be lazy, we can be self-entitled, we can be overly indulged. We kind of have this preconceived notion that it should be about us and no one else matters. So that's that right there. That's a preconceived notion that about the United States that some other countries and other people from different countries have, inadvertently said about the United States, either blatantly or maybe just behind the scenes. But don't get me wrong, because other countries do be talking mad shit about the United States, but sometimes they're not entirely wrong. That's the reason why I was kind of curious as to what was your view, like what was your view and outlook on the United States for someone who traveled from different countries, different cities. Like, what was your view? Like, and I don't know. I mean, my thing is, so what are some culturally sensitive acts that can be used within the United States that may be lacking supposed to within other countries?
Well, I think one of the really interesting cultural issues in the United States is how the sort of the dominant culture of the United States, which has, traditionally been dominated by white men, becoming more sensitive within the last generation of the cultures of people of other ethnicities, other races, indigenous people. Like, for example, my high school mascot for our sports teams was the Redskins. Well, eventually, I think it was in 2013, the school board voted to stop using Redskins because it was considered inappropriate and insulting to indigenous Native Americans. And, so they changed the mascot. And that sort of thing has been happening over time. And I think your generation, the millennials in particular, have helped push that. I think my generation, the baby boomers, sort of started it. And I wrote a book that was focused primarily on the evolution of sensitivity towards Native culture, which is called America's Existential Crisis, and it's how badly U.S. government and pioneers and et cetera treated the Native people, but how we have evolved, and how we are doing better, but we still have a way to go. And I think that's true of racism, sexism, all the isms. We've certainly made strides in my lifetime, but that it gets back to being culturally respectful. We look different. We have different cultures, so. And the one thing that is very unique about the United States is we are a potpourri of different cultures because of our ethnic, racial diversity. We are the most diverse nation in the world, which makes us very interesting, but it also creates a lot of conflict.
A lot of divide as well, because not everyone within the United States and even their predecessors had the same ideals as most, such as yourself. And it took a lot of anthropologists to really kind of put things into terms, into perspective, that made things a little bit more culturally sensitive. Because now they, even in media, now I feel like the light has been shed a little bit more on representation when it comes to those within the African American community, those who are within the Native American community, those from all different types of tribes and walks of life. And as things really progress, I definitely can say maybe from your time, you say you're a baby boomer, from your time to my time as a millennial, I won't be able to really give you the exact answer because I wasn't able to go back, I wasn't born around that time to really be like, oh, see it evolve and develop, whereby you have. But for someone who is in this day and age, who still kind of slightly still experience, tiny microaggressions of causative racism from time to time, or even culture appropriation in a sense, that definitely happens. Now, culture appropriation in a sense, not just like utilizing somebody else's culture, this and that. No, it's like utilizing the culture, but slandering it, okay? I really feel as though culture nowadays it's like everyone got a piece of the cake nowadays. You got some of the people that's mixed with so many things. Everyone's a mutt nowadays. So to say like, oh, because you're white and I'm black, you can't wear, specific garments that's more catered to that of the African American community. Where nowadays you have a lot of people that have at least 1% to 2% African American in their genes. Just because the outer may come off as, European or Caucasian, nowadays it's kind of hard to really pinpoint, oh, well, what is culture appropriation and what is not. Because culture appropriation nowadays is someone's feeling the need to show light to other parts of their heritage that they may not have known. And it's it's a bit challenging. It's definitely a touchy topic in today's world, whereby probably back in your time, you can tell off the jump if something wasn't right, and if someone being mistreated or being discriminated against, or cultural appropriation was a real thing then, as far as we was talking about with the Redskins in your school, which is funny because I'm from D.C. D.C. football team is the Redskins, and they changed it, I believe, about a few years ago. They changed it to the Washington football team. I don't know why it took them so goddamn long to change it, but it wasn't until everyone. There was a huge debate on whether or not it should be changed. And the indigenous started stepping up. Potentials were signed, and then now Redskins is no longer Redskins. Now it's called the Washington football team. So I can definitely relate what you were speaking with that. But yeah, I mean, even in that time, the mascot was Redskins. That was brought to everyone's attention. Like, okay, something is not right here. Let's make a change about it. It's the small things that adds up, you know? So I'm not looking for everything to change drastically automatically, but sometimes good things take time. Sometimes things that start small can eventually grow with the patience and the nurture of time. So, yeah.
Well, it's the microaggressions now are generally micro, whereas when I was younger, they were macro. I mean, for example, when I was a little kid, I remember driving from northern Indiana on a family trip down to Florida, and in the deep south, like seeing bathrooms that had, public bathrooms that still had signs, like one bathroom would be colored only, and another bathroom would have a sign, white, yeah. And I mean, that's in my, yeah. And so, I mean, the progress within my lifetime has been tremendous, but it's, now it's more subtle now. And when you see, somebody like Donald Trump, who got elected president, may very well get elected president again, God help us, using blatantly racist rhetoric, misogynist rhetoric. I mean, he is such a throwback in a way. To me, it's shocking that so many Americans are willing to vote for somebody who isn't very subtle about. I mean, he's going back to sort of macro aggressions. I mean, the way he talked about Mexicans, all those Mexicans pouring across our borders are criminals, rapists, murderers. I mean, it's just
No. Yeah, definitely. He's definitely a closeted racist in that case. And speaking of Mexicans, should I say? No. Speaking of the Latin community, not going to be like President Trump, those Mexicans crossing our borders. No, we ain't doing that shit. Not on this show. If anything, since speaking about the Latin community, so as you know, I'm originally from DC, but I'm now currently living here in New York. And as you know, New York is a sanctuary city, okay? And you got other cities that sanctuary, other states, California, Oregon. So just to name a few. Anyways, so these local laws that's been put into place to protect undocumented immigrants from deportation and prosecution in the sanctuary city here now. So there's been a huge debate of whether or not Joe Biden did this city justice. The mayor, Eric Adams, did this city justice by allowing undocumented immigrants to come into the city. Since my time of being in New York, which has been 2 years roughly, I really feel as though as a whole is not as bad as people deemed it out to be. I really feel as though they taken one bad apple with the whole migrant crisis and exploiting it and making it more than what it is to reverse what Biden was trying to do in the beginning. I really feel as though the narrative has been switched and changed. I personally don't feel as though like, oh, well, the immigrants, they are sitting here trashing our streets. Well, for one, New York streets have already been fucking trashed. Let's go and get that straight, okay? They've already been trashed. But two, there have been numerous cases of theft. Okay, I believe an immigrant was in custody for potentially killing a tourist. I cannot confirm that, but I did read something and heard something in the news about that recently. As far as everything else, I mean, the way that they have them placed now is not even bad, honestly. You know, staying in hotels, you're getting money, even though you don't have a work visa yet, you're still able to get some type of government assistance now. But you have a lot of New Yorkers that are really wholehearted on getting them up out of the city. And believe it or not, most of them are Trump supporters. So it's like a whole Trump gang that kind of runs the streets of New York in a sense. And that gang is kind of going up against the migrant. So long story short, let's just simplify. What is your view on sanctuary cities, and do you think they are beneficial for Americans and immigrants alike?
Well, it's something that's really interesting that's happening in Indiana right now. Our Attorney General just filed a lawsuit against the city of East Chicago, which is right, almost bumps up against Chicago, for being a sanctuary city. Because last year, the Indiana legislature passed a law banning sanctuary cities. And there's about 5 cities in Indiana that back when Trump was first, putting separating migrant families, putting them in cages, that kind of thing. About, I think it was 5, it might have been 7 cities passed local ordinance sort of declaring themselves as sanctuary cities. So the Republican legislature last year passed a law and said that's illegal. And so now the Attorney General is actually suing one of the cities. So it's right now in Indiana. It's a very hot topic. But I I think that our problems at the border have been terrible for a long time. Has absolutely failed in its duty to pass rational immigration laws. There will always be lots of people trying to get into the United States through the southern border. And because the poverty south of us is so much greater than what it is here. The opportunities are so much greater here. So, of course, people are going to try to come here. We shouldn't have open borders and just allow anybody in. But the reality is the United States needs low-wage foreign workers coming in to do the jobs that Americans don't want to do anymore. I mean, in my neighborhood, I just rode my bicycle by a house that's having a new roof put on. All the workers up on that hot roof on a July day appear to be Hispanic. And I'm sure they are, because I had a new roof put on my house about 4 years ago, and all the workers were Hispanic. Why is that? Well, because white and black Americans don't want to do that kind of work. And the same with, workers. The farm workers in this country are by far mostly from Latin America, from, south of our border. And we need those workers, so we need a way to determine who we want to let in, who we don't want to let in, and because we don't want criminals to come in, and we don't want people to come that just need.
We don't need just anybody, and that's the thing. We do need workers. Like I said previously, the United States is so diverse, and we do need workers. We do need individuals who's willing to maybe do the jobs that most Americans won't do, or to work with Americans to achieve the same goal. And I really feel that the criteria to come in should definitely be looked at a little bit more, because then you won't have certain things such as, killings and rapings that's been happening all around 42nd Street in New York. And yeah, it's a touchy topic. Honestly, I really think that in the long run, I really believe and hope that everything does work its way out. Now, so let's go ahead and speak about your books. And there's one in particular that I just want to get into, okay? It's a hitch, So it's a hitchhiker's big adventure now. On the road from Indiana to Key West and New Orleans for Mardi Gras 1972. Now, you stated in this book, you speak about meeting gypsies, tramps, and thieves, good Samaritans, and Jesus in a Ferrari. What the hell was that experience like? At least in a Ferrari?
I met all those kind of people when I was 18 years old. I went to college for 1 semester, dropped out, worked in a factory for a little while, saved up some money, and walked to the edge of my town and started hitchhiking south. And I met just most interesting people. All kinds of different people, some crazy, some highly intelligent. I mean, I got what they called flirty fished into going into a Children of God cult commune for a few days. Yeah, I mean, I met gypsies, I met tramps, I met thieves, and I met Jesus in a Ferrari. This guy picked me up in a Ferrari, which, Ferraris don't stop for hitchhikers, but this guy did. And he was living his life as close to the way he saw Jesus as he could. So every time we saw a car stop along the interstate, he would stop and we would offer to help. And he gave the money, and he had in his trunk these boxes of grapefruits and oranges. And he'd give them grapefruits and oranges and money and help them. Every single person we encountered, he did that.
It sound like you went for the ride of your life.
It was quite an
And yeah, definitely an experience that most dream of. Some think of doing, but never get up from the couch to do it. And I love it. That's why I say, like, you kind of have like this nomadic spirit about you. Like you break the confines of the norm, and it's typical, and you go out and explore for the answers and the truth. And yeah, that's interesting. I love that. I love that about you.
Thank you.
Okay. So are you working on anything new?
Well, yeah, it's very slow. My wife and I, when the pandemic hit, we started a routine that we're still doing. This is almost every weekend. We pick out a small town in Indiana, and we drive to it, and we walk around, and I take a bunch of pictures, and then I research the history of it, and I write up a post on Facebook for it. And we decided we're going to turn this into a book. We visited about 100 different towns, and so she's actually working on the introduction and taking a very long time to do it. But she's an English professor, so of course she has to have it just perfect. While I've written up all these different towns. And so, yeah, it's going to be like a travel log to where the title, our working title is Wander Indiana to Small Towns. And so, yeah, that's our current thing. And it's been really interesting because small towns, we were talking about culture. Every small town has kind of its own local culture, and we find a sort of a mom and pop local restaurant, eat there, try to start up conversations and learn about what people think about their own town. And then we record our own impressions of it, and eventually is going to become our next book.
Nice. That's really awesome.
Still adventure and sponsoring, although in more of a local area than good way across the world.
Do you know how many people aspire to achieve just that, to be able to say that to been through and done so many occupations within their time, and to be able to create a craft, to do something crafty, or to create a new chapter in their life with their life partner, and just working alongside each other? Like it's like no sweat off your brow. Like you just seem like it's just second nature, and it's a breath of fresh air just to see how equipped that you are at everything that you've been through, and to continually move forward and have the strongest ideals of someone such as yourself, and and just still be creative and constantly growing and evolving. That's amazing. Can you just tell listeners where they can find all your works?
Yeah. Well, I have a website, which is my full name, so www.jeffrasley.com. And I also have an author's page in Amazon, so you just input my name, you'll find it. Or you just Google my name. I'm sort of all over the internet because I've written about 80 different articles that show up, and now I'll show up through your podcast. So, yeah.
Dash it off show, yeah. Gotta give us love. So You already know. So all this information will be linked in the description, as far as Jeff Rasley's book, his stories. I can also check out the information about his foundation and everything else that we discussed today and so much more. And yeah, I mean, this pretty much concludes this episode of Dash It Out.
Namaste, my friend.